Hello, welcome back to the channel. When we look at ancient mythology, it's easy to see it as a collection of stories, symbols of a civilization's attempt to explain the world. But as we take a closer look today, we'll discover something deeper, something encoded within the symbols that points towards a greater truth. In this Myth Mechanics episode, I'll be examining one such system. As always, sources are in the channel bio for further reference. The Egyptian Ennead is an ancient framework and one of the oldest creation stories on record. At the center of it all is Atum, the first god emerging from the primordial waters of Mun. In the beginning, there was nothing, formless, infinite chaos. Then, through sheer will, Atum brings himself into existence. But he soon divides, creating Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the god of moisture. This act of self-division sets everything into motion, introducing duality, the first distinction in existence. The pattern continues with Shu and Tefnut, who give rise to Geb and the earth, and Nut, the sky. Then comes Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, the forces of life, death, chaos, and hidden knowledge. The world, as the Egyptians saw it, was built upon these paired forces, each one necessary, each one in tension with its opposite. At first glance, the Ennead might appear to be a mythological family tree, with deities ruling over air, moisture, earth, and sky. But when we stop thinking of them as just mythological figures and start reading them as archetypes, forces embedded in the structure of reality itself, something interesting starts happening. At first glance, the Ennead represents a straightforward mythological structure, a family of gods governing air, moisture, earth, and sky. Approached differently, however, these deities function as archetypes, psychological frameworks designed to simplify complex concepts. In previous discussions of myth mechanics, we explored how archetypes reflect quantum-level information passed through memory, biology, and culture. This concept of archetypes aligns naturally with dualities in physics, positive and negative, particle and wave, charge and spin. These dualities appear consistently from the quantum scale upward. The archetypes in the Ennead reflect these fundamental dualities. They represent the mind's subconscious organization of quantum patterns into recognizable forms. The more closely that quantum mechanics is examined, the clearer that it becomes that these archetypal patterns shape reality, including human consciousness itself. The ancient archetypes of the Egyptian Ennead reflect that deeper order of reality, raising profound questions about where this understanding might lead us as we seek to navigate the complexities of our world. These underlying principles embedded within the paired forces representing the Ennead offer insights into the dualities shaping existence, whereby engaging with these archetypes, we may uncover new avenues for perceiving and interacting with the world around us, with the potential to deepen our understanding of our place within the greatest tapestry of reality, says Hare in an article from 1999. The paired forces represented by the earliest deities reveal dualities that earn the humans intuitive to explain the contradictions in existence. Shu and Tefnut, for instance, embodied the push and pull between its expansion and cohesion, establishing a balance between separation and connection that we observe in the natural world. This exchange is reflected in the structure and function of biological systems, from the cell to the ecosystem, as well as the organization and evolution of celestial bodies, such as the formation and dynamics of galaxies. The complementary forces of expansion and cohesion, separation and connection are essential to the intricate web of life and the grand cosmic tapestry, each force necessary to sustain the delicate equilibrium that defines the fabric of reality. Similarly, Geb and Nut, earth and sky, personify the interplay between matter and form, the tangible and the cosmic. The Egyptians saw this interaction as a cyclical dance, with Nut, the goddess of the sky, swallowing the sun each night and then giving birth to it again each morning, representing the unbroken loop of time and eternal renewal. This cycle reflects the dynamics between earthly and celestial, the physical and the ethereal, the visible and the invisible. Just as Geb, the earth god, anchors us to the material world, Nut reminds us of the greater cosmic forces that shape our existence in an endless cycle of death and rebirth, decay and regeneration, loop after loop after loop. Osiris and Isis, embodying death and rebirth, mirror the regenerative cycle of existence, from the seasonal changes to the cyclical rise and fall of the Nile River. Isis, the sustaining and nurturing force, ensures that the dynamic pattern of destruction and restoration can continue uninterrupted, a pattern reflected not only in the natural rhythms of ecosystems, but also in the cycles of consciousness and cultural renewal. Finally, Set and Nephthys represent the potent forces of chaos and hidden knowledge, which are essential to navigate the ebbs and flows of change. Set's role in slaying the cosmic serpent of disorder ensures that the cycle of creation and destruction continues uninterrupted, while Nephthys holds the unseen wisdom to guide us through periods of transition and transformation. These complementary archetypes underscore the vital role that disruptive forces and occult knowledge play in sustaining the intricate symmetry and perpetual renewal of existence. They also reflect a deeper truth about the structure of reality, a truth mirrored in principles of quantum mechanics and philosophical traditions like Hermeticism and Taoism. Understanding and engaging with this intrinsic duality may provide new avenues for perceiving and interacting with existence. Each of these paired forces exists in a state of tension, but also necessity. One cannot function without the other. And this brings us to a bigger question. Is duality a human invention, something that we project onto reality to make sense of it, or is it woven into the very fabric of the universe? Duality appears across multiple disciplines, from ancient philosophy to modern physics, where we find something strikingly similar, as I've touched on just a little bit already. In quantum mechanics, the principle of wave-particle duality demonstrates that light and subatomic particles exhibit characteristics of both waves and particles, contingent on the method of measurement employed. Similarly, quantum spin states illustrate an inherent binary nature, where particles exist in states of complementary opposition, either spin up or spin down. These constraining spin orientations and the resulting quantum entanglement, forming the smallest scales in our universe, presenting matter and energy as paired forces, suggesting that the base nature of the universe is rooted in the dynamic equilibrium and perpetual exchange of the complementary states. Philosophical traditions have long recognized this fundamental structural duality that underpins the nature of existence. Hermeticism, an influential esoteric philosophy, articulates this principle through the principle of polarity. According to this principle, all phenomena in the universe exist along a continuum of opposing forces. Polarities such as heat and cold, light and darkness, expansion and contraction function as two independent ends of the same spectrum, providing an example of this principle in actual nature. These complementary forces are not only capable of transformation, but are in fact to define the very essence of reality through their duality itself. Mastery of existence from this perspective, then, requires a deep understanding of the perpetual movement and dance between these polar opposites. Rather than resisting or attempting to eliminate the dynamic symmetry they establish, by embracing and engaging with this inherent duality, one can gain a more profound and holistic comprehension of the structure of reality. The Egyptian Ennead reflects this structure in its divine archetypes. Shu and Tefnut embody the dualism of air and moisture, expansion and cohesion. Geb and Nut define the harmony between earth and sky, form and closure. Osiris and Set personify the forces of regeneration and disruption, both necessary to sustain a cycle of existence. These subconsciously encode a recognition of an equilibrium and interconnection within the natural order of things. These insights of ancient wisdom and modern physics both point to a basic truth. Reality is defined by the reciprocity of opposites. Throughout history, humans have sought to define their place in the universe, mapping out reality through symbols, philosophy, and science. These patterns of duality appear everywhere, from the subatomic scale to the grand cycles of celestial motion. But if this duality is built into reality itself, what do you think that means for consciousness? In quantum mechanics, we see a paradox. Particles exist in superposition, occupying multiple states until observed. The act of measurement collapses this multiplicity into a fixed form. So, what if this principle applies to us? What if the way that we perceive reality is a limitation of our current cognitive framework, a function of existing within a three-dimensional projection of a higher dimensional structure? Ancient wisdom hints at this possibility. Mystical traditions across cultures speak of heightened states of awareness of sages, prophets, and visionaries who seemed to reach across the constraints of time and space. Egyptian, Hermetic, and Taoist teachings describe this path as alignment, a process of attuning oneself to greater flow of reality. The Ennead, the Tao, and the Hermetic principle of polarity, each of these traditions reflecting and understanding that mastery comes not from rejecting duality, but from integrating it into a higher state of awareness. And so here is a thought experiment for you. If reality as we experience it is structured by duality, what happens when we move beyond our reality? In a three-dimensional world, existence is defined by opposing forces: light, dark, expanding, contracting, matter, energy, cold, hot. In physics, we see this at every scale: wave-particle duality, quantum spin states, the electromagnetic forces that bind the universe together. Everything we perceive is built upon contrast and opposition. Because physicality itself is a product of division, a separation of potential into distinct forms, but on the other side of this boundary, does duality still exist? The Higgs field gives mass to particles, defining the difference between something and nothing, form and formless. If that boundary marks the transition between physical existence and something more fundamental than beyond it, separation collapses into unity, a state where separation dissolves, where distinction collapses into a continuous field of being, a fifth dimension, after the fourth dimension of time, defined by a unity consciousness field. And if that's the case, then transcendence involves recognizing a greater continuity within existence rather than seeking departure from the material world. For centuries, spiritual traditions have presented transcendence as an exit, freedom from suffering, illusion, or the boundaries of physical experience. And while that might be partially true, I find it more helpful to view transcendence as instead a process of integration, where awareness expands free of duality and engages with existence in its fullest expression. Our understanding of evolution has focused on physical adaptation, shaped by changes in biology over time. But what if that next step involved cognition itself? So if consciousness is linked to the quantum field, as we've discussed in previous videos, then evolution follows a trajectory toward expanded awareness, moving from a fixed perception of time and space to an integrated understanding of that full structure. The transition from 3D to 4D is an evolutionary expansion of perception, allowing for more complete interaction with time, causality, and existence as a whole. The principles of this shift are already present in scientific disciplines. Einstein's relativity shows that time and space exist as a unified field, experienced differently depending on perspective. Quantum mechanics reveals that reality exists in probabilities until measured, suggesting that observation plays a role in determining outcomes. So then, consciousness. A shift in cognition parallels this structure, moving from linear cause and effect towards a state of cognitive superposition. Instead of experiencing time as a sequence of moments, advanced evolutionary perception would expand into a spatial awareness of time, where past, present, and future exist as a unified continuum rather than isolated events. Decision-making would no longer rely on logic-bound steps, but on direct, intuitive knowing, similar to how quantum systems exist in multiple states until observation collapses them into a single outcome. Across mystical traditions, descriptions of enlightenment align with these ideas. Figures who achieved higher states of consciousness describe an awareness where past, present, and future are no longer distinct, and intuition replaces linear thinking. Choices emerge from a place of direct knowing, wisdom, rather than sequential decision-making, knowledge. Figures like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Elijah, and Elisha engaged with time and reality in a way that suggests this heightened cognitive state. Their actions and insights point to an evolved awareness that more efficiently utilized linear cause and effect, allowing them to interact with existence as a connected whole. They remained within the material world while perceiving it from a broader perspective, recognizing patterns and possibilities that were more cognitively advanced. This transition follows a natural pattern, much like a caterpillar undergoing metamorphosis. The transformation is not an escape, but an evolutionary structural shift, and one that reveals a reality that was always present but previously inaccessible to our little 3D human brains. If consciousness is quantum in nature, and we've looked at a lot of research that points towards the fact that it is, then what we call transcendence in spirituality is a stage in an ongoing, real evolutionary process, one that moves towards greater access towards the full dimensional framework of existence. And the shift is already happening. Recognize is the first step. Learning to engage with it shapes what comes next. That's all that I have for you guys today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell like the winners that you are. And I will see you next time.